searching the web for the most talented, creative, and intriguing independent authors.
Master, your stories are ready.
Ooh, goody. The Emit Blackwell Show, diving into the creative minds of sci-fi, fantasy, horror, and paranormal authors. Their fantasy is our reality. Welcome once again to the Emit Blackwell Show. I have another literary hero here, and she is a copy editor and proofer. Her name is Cheyenne Raye Williams. Cheyenne, how are you doing tonight?
I'm good. How are you, Emit?
I'm doing fantastic. It's really great that you came on the show to talk about your copy editing skills and your proofing skills. But my question is, when did you get started in this whole thing? What started the whole decision to say, hey, I'm going to start copy editing and proofreading?
Right. So it really all started in the second grade. I remember, we would grade each other's spelling tests, and some of my teachers would have us write out a paragraph along with our spelling test. Mm-hmm. And I remember just reading some of these kids' paragraphs and being like, oh, this would be so much better if it had a comma here or a period there. And in second grade, my teacher actually dubbed me the comma queen because of my genius usage of the comma.
Yeah, so that's another thing that could happen. Bad uses of commas. I'm sure everybody's heard those. So now your educational background, you're talking about, your childhood years. What type of educational background do you have that you've added to your resume?
Yes, so I have my Bachelor of Arts in English from Meredith College in Raleigh, North Carolina. It's a women's liberal arts college, and I'm currently earning my master's in multicultural and transnational literatures through East Carolina University in Greenville.
Wow. What does that entail? Do you have to do like a couple more years then?
Well, I graduated from Meredith in May 2016, and then I went right into grad school, and so I actually graduate from my program in December.
Oh, wow. So it's coming up real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, and, being a copy editor and a proofer, some authors might say, they have some of the most boring jobs in the world. They have to go through and they have to take a fine-tooth comb to everything that a writer writes, and they kind of lose the concept of the story. But you told me before the show that you actually have written stuff, so you have the same passion as any author out there. Is that true?
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I published my first poem when I was 7 years old. I mean, it wasn't anything big. It was this mass-produced thing, write a poem and we're going to put you in this book. And I actually wrote about my first dog. I just wrote this, haiku, and I was actually trying not to get in the book, but they actually picked me for the book anyway. So that was my very first experience being published. But no, I am a creative writer as well, and I did a lot of creative writing in college. I have to shout out my favorite creative writing professor, Miss Ashley Hogan, for really piquing my interest when it comes to creative writing and things like that. And then I have a minor in professional writing as well, so I'm sort of well-versed on all aspects of the writing and the editing process.
Yeah, and you kind of told me about that a little bit before the show, and maybe the listeners might want to hear it too. Fiction is fiction, and that's great. And there's like advertising writing too, and most people out there may not know this, but advertising writing can be some of the hardest writing to do because you're advertising something in a way that appeals to everybody or appeals to a particular audience. And you had also done some of that type of advertising writing for a company, right?
Yes, I did. I worked as a copywriter before, and I've done a little bit of ghostwriting as well for a company. And right now, my current day job is a marketing manager for a local realtor broker. Mm-hmm. And as far as that goes, it's all about, the idea that the client is always right, the reader is always right, and just wanting to kind of tailor your talents to them and tailor your words to them and what you think they're going to want to hear, also while also sliding your credentials in there and making the pot a little sweeter for them.
Yeah, and that's one thing too with that type of industry is there's a lot of money floating around on this.
Yeah.
So it's not something that they want to take too much of a risk on. They're already taking enough risks as it is. The documentation should be the least of their worries, you know?
Absolutely.
And that's one thing too that kind of made me think about that just now is that the authors throw a lot of money into their advertising. They really do. They try to get their marketing out there. And the one biggest worry is the story itself. And from what I've seen, you can do this a couple of different ways, and a lot of people can take this a lot of different ways. If you put too much money into your marketing without spending that little bit of money to copy edit your book and proofread your book, you can really fall into a bad spot. And I mean, would you agree with that?
I absolutely would, because I mean, we all judge books by their covers. I mean, I'm gonna pick up a nice looking book cover over one that's not nice looking to me, but even if you spend $100 on the book cover and you don't spend, maybe at least like 50 or 25 on what's inside the book, then it's all, I mean, your money's just going to be wasted, because they're going to get, like you said earlier, they're going to get to page 12 and they're going to say, man, this isn't doing it for me. I'm not going to tell my friends to read this book. I'm not going to go on Goodreads and recommend this book. So
yeah, it's probably one of the best investments any writer out there can make. And I'll tell you this from experience. If you even were to take a college essay, okay, there's a difference between A+ and a D- just based on how much editing they do with it,
Oh, absolutely.
And the same thing applies to the real world. Your reader can say this is an A+ or a D-, and it makes a big difference. So now, talking about that, what type of services do you offer?
I offer a myriad of different types of services, and even if you're listening and you think that you need help with something but you don't think I do it, I still encourage you to reach out to me, because maybe we can come to a conclusion of something that I either forgot to say or I've done before and I can't remember that I've done it.
Yeah.
So, but mainly I do copy editing, proofreading. I can do ghostwriting for you. I can do copywriting for you. Just a simple read over of your book, anything really. And my rates are actually based on your budget. So we talk prices together. I don't like to throw out an umbrella price, because I know, since I am a writer, I know the starving artist mentality. I know that it's tough out there for us humanities people. So
Yeah,
I don't want to scare anyone away with an umbrella price.
Yeah, and that's really great that you do that, because I know a few authors out there who haven't been on the show, but who I've looked at, and they could use that kind of service. And it's one thing that gets just about every author, and even I feel the pain with it too, is when you take something that you've spent months, maybe even years working on to create, and you've put your heart and soul into this document, and you hand it off to somebody to review for editing and proofing, and they come back with this red piece of paper covered in scratches and everything.
It's bloody.
Yeah, I mean, what can you do to kind of, I don't know, alleviate the fear of getting back that really bad document,
Right. Well, I know that your work is your child, and just like in childcare or dog sitting, we're going to work together to take care of your child and to make sure that your child ends up as being as healthy as he or she can be. I know that you pour over hours and you probably lose sleep, and you might, call out of work to write one day, or it might be, part of your mental health strategy to write. I understand all those things, and I just want the audience to know that I understand with that and I empathize with that, but we are going to work together to make your story the best that it can be for the reader.
Yeah, and the fact that you work with the financial side of it too, and that's just golden. So I really appreciate it.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sure the audience out there appreciates it too. Now, Cheyenne, how can somebody get a hold of you?
Well, I can actually send you a digital copy of my business card, but you can text me. My phone number is on my business card, which I think you can put in on the video part of it.
Oh, yeah.
And then my email is also on there. You can either text or email me. You can call me, but I do work full time, and I'm also a full-time grad student, so I might not answer right away. It's usually easy for me to send a quick text or send an email, and it's also better for us, in our industry to have things down on paper and agreements in paper and things like that. So I usually prefer texting or emailing.
Yeah, and you're on Twitter as well, because that's how you and I got connected, right?
Yeah, Twitter and Instagram as well.
All right. And there's, out of all the writing that you've done and all the editing and everything that you see, my curiosity is with what your favorite genre is.
I would say my favorite genre at the current moment is probably actually horror. And that might just be because I'm spending so much time on my dissertation right now, which actually has to do with horror. My dissertation is titled Folklore and the Supernatural's Relationship to Slavery and Racism in the United States. So things like, Jordan Peele's Get Out and Ryan Murphy's American Horror Story Coven, things like that, and the relationship that it has to folklore and the supernatural. I'm writing about, Tituba, things like voodoo and witchcraft, and then how they also relate to slavery and racism in the United States, past and present.
Yeah, and that's a whole nother culture that we haven't really even talked about yet, but I would love to meet an author out there, and this is just a shout out to anybody out there who may be diving into the voodoo New Orleans kind of lifestyle down there, because it's so captivating. It really is. And it's such a cultural mishmash of things. I mean, honestly, it's just like the gumbo that they serve. You know what I'm saying?
And it is, right. Like a tossed salad.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And that's another thing, too, is I've always wanted to visit down in that area, and maybe someday I will meet an author down there. That'd be great. Yeah, it was a pleasure talking to you. I love having people like you on here, because you guys are literary heroes. You guys really do put a lot of passion into your work, and I'm just so thankful that you're here on the show today. Thank you so much, Cheyenne.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
And I just want to remind all of our viewers out there and listeners to like, share, and subscribe to any one of the channels that we have here for the Emit Blackwell Show via the podcast or the YouTube or anything like that. You can even visit www.emitblackwell.com. There will also be a link for Cheyenne Raye Williams on there to maybe get her copy editing skills. And I want to thank everybody for listening tonight. This is Emit Blackwell signing off. Keep on reading and keep on writing.
Searching the web for the most talented, creative, and intriguing independent authors.
Master, your stories are ready.
Ooh, goody. The Emit Blackwell Show, diving into the creative minds of sci-fi, fantasy, horror, and paranormal authors. Their fantasy is our reality.